All right, everyone. Monday morning. Morning briefing from the Celtic Way. Speaking after we beat Ross County yesterday. Ryan, you're just only in the last couple of hours, is that right?
Feels like it, honestly. Yeah, I got in at 8:30 last night, so not the best sleep, but another 3 points back down the road. Happy for another 3 points. Invincible start to the season continues domestically, at least. Good to get that fight back as well after going down a goal. You need to win ugly in some games, and that's what Celtic did yesterday, although it was a great second goal from Nicholas Kuhn that we'll get on to talk about. Another 3 points. I've said that about 3 times already, but yeah, delighted with that. And we move into the international break, top of the league.
Yeah, you've not had a great amount of sleep. I'm probably the same actually in Sydney, guys, in a hotel room. So it's lovely here. Joe, you're probably the only normal one here who's operating with decent sleep and all that stuff. So we're relying on you for the sensible comments.
I slept on the couch last night because my children have got into a habit of coming into my bed. So
We just scrap the video then. Will we get some
yeah.
guests on instead of us? Because
I'll raise you travelling nomads, lack of sleep, two young children, primary school age and nursery age, and then come back.
You win.
Yeah, but no, I agree. Not the most entertaining of games by any stretch, although maybe last 15 minutes beg to differ yesterday. But rolling out the cliches, a different side of the team. As I've actually not caught up with everything that the manager said post match, so you guys can enlighten me there. He might have rolled that cliche out, but it was a different side of Celtic's game that we've not seen this year so far. But yeah, I was a wee bit disappointed to lose the goal just because Celtic were doing so well on the clean sheet front, but to get 3 points is the main thing. And as Ryan says, into the international break, top of the league, so no complaints really.
Yes, that is all that really matters. Ryan, how was your day yesterday with Tony? Good day travelling up and down. Obviously got to see Celtic get the win in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I always enjoy every away day that I have with Tony. We got there in pretty good time just as the teams were coming out, or the teams were announced on social media. So we're doing that. Then we're obviously on the pre-match show. Celtic, for whatever reason, just did not play well yesterday for large amounts. Although you say that, and then you look at the stats. I'm doing the stats bomb report just now that'll be out early this afternoon. And Celtic were absolutely dominant in a lot of the key metrics of the game. 81% possession, just under 900 passes attempted, something like 23 total shots, 8 on target.
They must have been late on though, because I'm sure we hadn't had a shot on target at half time. Is that right?
Yeah, we really did. I mean, it was one-way sailing in the second half, and I do make that point. We use the race chart on StatsBomb, which sort of shows where the XG is going in the game, and Ross County's just stops about midway through because they have no shots from then until the end of the game. At them as an attacking force was nothing by that point. It was one-way sailing. Celtic just turned the screw and turned it so much that they got that late goal from Nicholas Kuhn, and it was what they deserved. When you look at the stats, that Celtic did deserve to win the game, but they were not at their best, but they had to win ugly, and that's what they did. It doesn't matter how you win a game, you still get the same 3 points that you did when you beat St Johnstone last week 6-0. You still get the same amount of points winning 2-1 up at Dingwall. That's 2 big away wins, 2 out of 3. Obviously you had the disappointment in the Borussia Dortmund game, but sometimes I think it's good for galvanisation, winning a game late with that sort of goal, with that sort of celebration from Nicholas Kuhn. Thought it was really interesting at full time that Alistair Johnson sort of took the lead with the celebrations, but told everybody to calm down. He sort of ushered the players around and said, almost as if he was saying, right, we didn't play well today. Let's not go overboard. Let's not go all out and over exuberance in their celebrations. Like, it's on to the next game. And I like that. I like seeing that leadership quality from Johnson. Just so turned out that he was the catalyst in the game because he got that goal, which was a lucky goal, a lucky deflection off his hip into the back of the net. But he also played that key pass into Nicholas Kuhn that ended up in the assist for the goal. So I like that leadership quality. 3 points, no complaints whatsoever. Yeah, maybe slightly with the goal conceded, but it's a penalty. Teams are expected to score penalties in that sort of situation. No complaints about the giving of the penalty as well. But 3 points down the road and job done.
It's all about what you take away from the game for me, and I totally get it. Celtic went great yesterday generally. The first 70 odd minutes, things that were coming off or have been coming off so far this season just weren't working. There was one example in the second half it was either Engels or Alistair Johnson, who for me were the two worst for this yesterday, for trying things and it not coming off, wee flicks and stuff. One of them, in fact, it might have been the two of them linking up, and one of them then went to play a pass and the run just hadn't been made. And I was thinking earlier on in the season that would have been happening. So I'm not exactly what happened yesterday. Could have been a bit of a knock-on effect from Tuesday night. Obviously, that would have been pretty damaging to any team's confidence. I think Ross County were well set up. I thought they played pretty well. I mean, it was a defensive approach, obviously, but very hard to break that down. It's a tight pitch, good pitch, but a tight pitch. And yeah, as I say, there was obviously, we had players underperforming. So that's my kind of take on why it didn't happen yesterday, Joe. I don't think it's anything to worry about. We have these games every season. You're not going to batter teams 4-5 and 6-0 every week in this league. Yesterday was a reminder to me that of how good Celtic standards have been domestically over the past 4 or 5 months. I don't know how many wins that is now domestically. Must be close to 20 now in a row. And like every game is tough because the opposition are always up for trying to beat Celtic. So yesterday just proved that to me, the team's kind of battling qualities.
Yeah, and I think I agree that it was disappointing as per the standards that Celtic set. And that's ultimately what you're saying, Hamish, isn't it? I think that without being overly positive about, it's great to have 3 points. It's great to go into the international break top of the league and have that perfect record. It's not the worst thing in the world for players that are still learning the club. People like Arne Engels, who will have taken the blow of midweek last week with the rest of the team. Come back and you need to go to Ross County where it's a completely different game, a lot less glamorous. These things, without again, I'm always reluctant to make something more profound than it is, but I think that these are learning curves for these younger players as well, to go up and, as you say, tight pitch against a team who lined up really well, difficult to break down. Aidan McGeady made the comparison at half-time, I think it was, or possibly full-time. He was in the studio at Sky saying that perhaps, he was being a little bit flippant, but he's like, perhaps there are some learnings on how Ross County set up to be difficult to break down that Celtic might have borrowed the previous Tuesday against Dortmund. But I think there is truth in that. Like we said this last week, I don't think anyone in those moments, if you go back to Dortmund, are wanting Celtic to park the bus, but just be a little bit harder to break down. Ross County for 75 minutes made that the case yesterday. And yeah, I said this off camera to Ryan. We met in the office earlier today. I think that the manager said it as well. There was a lack of urgency in Celtic's play right up until that 75th minute. You get a bit of luck with the goal, and there's almost, I mean, you'd love to see goals like Nicholas Kuhn's second every single week, but there's something about those goals where it's not really supposed to go in. Callum McGregor's shots going wide. It reminded me a little bit of Scott Brown's at Rugby Park a number of years ago, where the shots going, Scott Brown won the league at Rugby Park, it's going nowhere near the goal, and it ends up in the net.
That was going in the top corner, Joe.
At the point where Scott Brown himself has admitted that it was going about 40 feet wide. But no, I mean, Alistair Johnson's very frank about that as well. He said, it hit off me. I think the shot was going wide and it hit off me, and you'll take it. And then he provides that absolutely brilliant pass for Nicholas Kuhn. And in a game where Kuhn was by no means the worst on the pitch, but quiet by his standards, for him to have that presence of mind and coolness and just take it on his shoulders. 87 minutes on the clock, I think. Okay, there was 7 minutes at the time, but the players even said this. Johnston and Kuhn did their interview post-match with Sky together, said they'd no idea what time was on the clock for Johnston's goal. Maybe had a sense it was near the end of the game with Kuhn's, but they're not necessarily looking at that. So yeah, it's a typical Nicholas Kuhn goal that we might not have been saying towards the end of last season, but he's building himself into that kind of player. I'm interested to get your guys' thoughts on this point, because for me, like the issue was getting that first goal yesterday. I think because I was quite concerned 20 minutes ago. I remember looking at the clock and seeing, we're still trailing. We weren't really creating much. But I felt if we got one goal, we'd go to win the game. And us getting that first goal, there was genuinely no doubt in my mind. And I'm a kind of glass half full guy generally with Celtic, but when we get that first goal, the equaliser, there was no doubt in my mind we were going to go on and win that game.
And we've had a lot of dramatic late goals, and I know this was like 87 minutes. It wasn't like a 94th Anthony, 98th Anthony Ralston winner, but it didn't feel like a euphoric, incredible last minute Celtic goal, which it probably was. Like, it was a brilliant goal to score late on to win a game, but it just felt quite inevitable. And I guess that's a huge compliment to this team. Ryan, did you feel the same way, that like when it got it to 1-1, we were just going to go and win the game?
I was pretty confident that Celtic were going to win the game when it was 1-1 when they equalised. I just seen it in the Ross County body language as well. They knew that the cavalry was coming. They knew that they were going to be facing an absolute barrage of shots in the final 10-15 minutes, and I just felt that Celtic, they went up the gears. They were actually playing okay in the last half hour of the game. They were imposing themselves on Ross County. They just had to take their time. I think the subs played a massive role in that, and I know we'll probably go on to talk about the likes of Luke McCown, Paulo Bernardo, and to an extent Kyogo as well for his movement, because he makes that decoy run.
As well,
James Forrest. Was every player that came on understood the assignment that was set for them, and they all played their part in that victory. But I think a special shout out needs to go to Luke McCown, because I think he's going to be an important player for Celtic in all competitions. I said in all competitions, and I realised he was cup tied. He can't play in the League Cup. It's good that you can edit tweets for an hour, because I edited that one, so he can't play in the semi-final and the final. But yeah, I just think he's so effective, having a guy that knows the domestic league, knows what's expected, and he brings in those leadership qualities as well. It's not as if he was a bit part player at Dundee. He was by far their best player and their captain. He set the standards at Dundee, and a good Dundee team that are managed well by Tony Docherty. Even him coming on feels like a bit of an upgrade. He feels like one of these Scottish players that is coming on and instantly making a difference, because he understands what it's like to play in grounds like this, what it means, what is required in that sort of environment and tempo of the game. And I just thought he was absolutely brilliant yesterday. Yes, the free kick that he got was soft in the lead up to the goal, but I think he evened itself out, because there was a challenge a couple of minutes prior where he wins the ball, he headers the ball, and I think it's against Conor Randall, and the referee judges it as being a foul the other way. So it evened itself out in the best possible way. Delighted with the subs' contribution, but I was very confident that once Celtic got that equaliser, they would go on and win the game, because you believe in this team, and once they get one goal, much like maybe to their detriment, they concede in clusters in Europe. I feel like they score a lot of goals in clusters as well. It's quite consistent in that way on both ends of the pitch. But once they get one, and once they get the hunger for that one goal, regardless of how it's taken or how it goes in the back of the net, it was a messy goal, but the crowd believed in the team. And I think the crowd played that 12th man really, really well in the game, because they drove them on. The fact that the Celtic players were driving that way to that crowd as well, I think was a massive bonus. And Nicholas Kuhn, it's almost as if he believed in himself and believed that he could go and take the game by the scruff of the neck. There was a point in the second half where Maeda gets taken off, and Tony and I were talking to each other. It was like, we know he's going to take off one of the wingers to bring on James Forrest, and we both agreed with each other, it's got to be Daizen Maeda in this game. It just wasn't happening for him, although he was dangerous in the first half. Kuhn had the beating of his marker for the whole game, and then for whatever reason they stopped giving it to him, but then they started giving it to him again, and that's the reason why they won the game, because he's so direct and so dangerous. So good management from Brendan Rodgers. He's got his sub spot on, he got the players coming off and players coming on spot on, and that's what won him the game.
It's not even, Joe, it's not even as if we've been scoring many late goals over this run we've been on over the last 4 or 5 months. Other than yesterday, I can't personally think of any like last gasp wins we've had. I'm sure there was maybe one out there, but still, you just felt really secure that the team, once they got that first goal, would go on and win the game. Yeah,
and I think that the manager deserves the credit for the substitutes he's made, as Ryan says. I think a lot is made about strength and depth. You say it all the time with Celtic, and it's something that was being said a lot after the players that come in the transfer window. The Falkirk game, with the 8 changes that were made at the start, sort of upset that a little bit. Seeing some fans saying, is there strength and depth if these players are coming and starting and maybe not affecting the game, and relied on Nicholas Kuhn with his 2 assists and 2 goals against Falkirk. I think games like yesterday reaffirm the strength and depth. I think the manager took the responsibility for the 8 changes being too many. I thought Alex Vai was brilliant yesterday as well, coming in, and we'll go on to talk to him. Talk about
go for it if you want.
But I just thought that the assuredness that he's shown as a young player who's not here for on a permanent basis, and you spoke about some of the things not coming off that Celtic were trying yesterday that might have come off in games before. His reading of the game seems like a really intelligent player, especially for his age, and being able to try things that our players in maybe more recent times in that position don't have the confidence to do. He seems just to be playing and taking things in his stride. Getting a run on the team kind of inadvertently at the moment, but really seizing that opportunity. I thought he was one of the standout players in a performance overall that probably wasn't quite at the standards that we've seen so far this season. But it's I always get a little bit frustrated when we enter international breaks when things are going well. Probably the first time with international breaks come along for me, we thought, right, maybe we just need to take stock and pause and get ourselves recharged again, because emotionally, physically, the Dortmund game will have had some toll. I'm not sure that, I'm hoping that the players are over it now. You go, you roll up your sleeves, you get the dirty work done yesterday, and now you can take stock. The players that go away hopefully come back fine. We've got this Sligo friendly as well, which is quite unusual, but it's a run out for the players who stay and are able to feature there, and then hopefully we can hit the ground running with a big game once things get back underway.
Yeah, we're not in a bad place really when you look at all the competitions. I just got a notification Charles has become a new member. Did you guys get that? That's the first time that's ever happened. Welcome, Charles. New name, Charles Coker. Became a YouTube member. Yep. We spent 10 minutes talking about Charles.
Could talk about Alex Bailly for the next 5 minutes as well, because I was really impressed. I was impressed early on. I know his positioning was a wee bit off, the penalty that led to the opening goal for Ross County, but I think in the second half he really did start to believe in his own game and believed that he was a good football player. There was a point in particular where he heads the ball forward, but then he turns as well, and I'm like, Greg Taylor doesn't do that. That's athletic. That's an athletic left back. Greg Taylor does have athleticism, but maybe not to that extent. He's more of a playmaking left back. This guy wants to run to the byline. Yes, he wants to get inverted as well. You noticed that in the first half. He was coming inside and making himself like an extra midfielder. I just like the look of him. He passes the eye test for me. He's a player that's definitely got something there. You can tell why he was in and around the pre-season camp at Barcelona. I'm not going to make comparisons because I made a slight comparison yesterday on Twitter saying that he does remind me ever so slightly, just the way that he runs and the way that he operates, like Kieran Tierney. I'm not saying he's the same player, but he's that sort of athletic. Wow. A mixture of the two of them would be absolutely tremendous. I think, to be honest with you, I think he's here on loan to gauge what he's like as a Celtic player, and then Celtic will make it permanent. There's no point. I don't see the point in Celtic developing this talent for Barcelona for him to just go back there and maybe sit on the bench or go somewhere else in Spain. I think this is a loan, but I think there's an agreement between the two clubs that he probably will join for that. That's probably the reason why they extended his deal, just to make sure that money will be coming through. But in terms of, I thought he was positive against Borussia Dortmund in the second half. There wasn't many positives on the night, but I thought he showed himself up quite well in that. He got the assist against Falkirk. I know he was culpable for maybe one or if not both of the Falkirk goals, but he got that assist, and he kept it going yesterday with a really encouraging performance, showed his athleticism, showed he can get to the byline, showed he can also be inverted too. So there's plenty more to come. I think people were far too quick to write him off after that Falkirk game. He's a 21-year-old coming from Barcelona to Scotland. It's going to be a bit of a culture shock to him. He needs some time to develop, but the early signs look promising, and I can't wait to see more of him, especially at home when he's going to have the freedom of Celtic Park to run at.
Yeah, I thought he was good yesterday. I thought it was a good performance, encouraging that as things got kind of more tense in the second half, and you know what I mean, like the pressure was kind of ramped up. He didn't fold at all. If anything, he came on to more of a game then at that stage, so that was really encouraging. I thought his final ball at times was poor, overhit crosses, so that's something he has to improve. He got into really good areas, and his final ball wasn't great. So I don't think it was all amazing from him yesterday. But I'm more than happy to see him going forward. And it sounds like Greg Taylor might miss the next couple of matches and their big games as well. We'll come on to that Aberdeen game in a wee second. Just a few comments. Charlie saying is never in doubt yesterday with the wee wink. Jerry is looking forward to the Aberdeen game. That's going to be a cracker, guys. James reckons or thinks McCowan was brilliant yesterday. Wholeheartedly agree with that. I thought that McCowan made a big difference. Just picks up really good areas. Great left foot as well. Right, Reo Hatate chat. Christopher Patterson saying that Hatate needs to talk. His attitude is shocking. I didn't think he was great yesterday by any means. I thought he did some things quite well. He had a couple of wee moments where he was able to kind of break the lines with a nice wee pass, or especially in the first half, letting the ball come across him. But there does seem to be a feeling, I don't personally agree with it. I rate Reo Hatate. I don't think he's been brilliant by any means this season, but I do rate him. But there does seem to be a feeling, Joe, that certainly a large, percentage of the support are really not fancying Hatate at the moment.
He's a real conundrum in the sense that, he can be unplayable. We know that. When he turns it on, he is a remarkable player. But amongst the fans, you start Reo Hatate and people are saying, rightly or wrongly, everyone's entitled to their opinion. His attitude isn't right, or he's maybe not playing to his best. And then Paulo Bernardo comes in and he's not creative enough, he's not inventive enough that Hatate should be starting. He's in that position where, I think it's going to upset people or it's going to appease people either way. But again, for me, that goes back to, and I'm a broken record with these competition for places, but what you can offer on the pitch and the variety in which Brendan Rodgers will leverage his squad. If Reo Hatate, it sounds like I'm trying to make a negative a positive, but if Reo Hatate doesn't play like the way he does yesterday, Paulo Bernardo doesn't come on and affect the game in the way he does. So it's case by case. I like him. I think that, Ryan normally rolls out Tony's phrases when Tony's not here, but the horses for courses for one is one which I'm clearly spending too much time on this pod when you have me on, because it's now coming into my vocabulary. But I agree with it. I think that as the game suits and the manager's astute enough to know when it's perhaps not working. I think that was probably the case yesterday. Thought he was fine. Didn't think anyone was brilliant, and the subs came on and kind of affected that game. I don't have any issues, and I think that probably the best is yet to come this season for him. He's maybe had a slower start than we might have expected from him, given this is a season that we kind of expected him to, want to push his game forward, and whether that's with Celtic in mind or if it's putting himself in a short window, whatever, he's maybe been a little bit slower at the traps. But yeah, no complaints from me personally.
Because he's had some really good games. I remember St Mirren away was excellent. I thought Slovan at home, he had a really good game that night. There's been other games as well. But there's also been, some games he's been poor. I just think it's interesting. The thing you always see about Hatate is that his attitude's not right. And I don't know if that, maybe there's some sort of truth in that. I don't know. I think it's more a case of the way Hatate comes across. Like, you very rarely see him smiling, and he's never really smiled, apart maybe from his very early days at the club. And also his style of play, when it's not coming off, when it is coming off from him, he looks majestic. When it's not coming off from him, he can sometimes look a little bit laboured in midfield. I still think he's got a hell of a lot to offer.
Just jump in at that point, Hamish. Sorry to cut you off, but I've spoken before to Ryan about this off camera. I remember when I was in club media, there was a kind of, and I might have mentioned this in the pod before, apologies if I have, but there was a similar attitude kind of directed at Olivier Cham when he was a Celtic player. And I remember when I was in club media, a lot of people would say if he dropped out of a game, his attitude was rotten. And I remember being up there at Lennoxtown, and most of the players had left the building by 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And there was nights where Olivier Cham was out doing extra training till 5:30 at night, in the winter when it's dark, out doing drills, out doing free kicks and things like that. So again, didn't see too much behind the scenes when I was club media, but you see a little bit more. And this idea that his attitude was rotten because of the way he conducted himself, his head was down, he would drop in and out of games. I don't think it's fair to rate players or judge players' attitudes just on what you see on the pitch. And I've no idea what Hatate's like now. If I never once saw him. Yeah, I'd left Club by the time he came in. But you know what I mean? It's easy to judge from this side, I suppose. And I could, it might be right. His attitude might not be brilliant behind the scenes. I've got no idea. But in terms of an example, I always go back to when people would judge him for, seeming lazy or seeming like he's out of it, when actually he was putting in the hard yards over and above what was expected. So just a slight insight. I've no idea what Hatate's like, but yeah.
Interesting. Any other players on your mind, Ryan, from yesterday?
It wasn't Engels' best game yesterday, that's for sure. And that thing you were talking about earlier on, that moment when it was between Johnson and Engels, I believe it was Engels, because he threw his hands up as if he gave the ball away. And it was at that point you were like, I think there was a collective sigh and like, he's going to get taken off in 5 minutes here. He'd ran his race. Just seems like a guy that's hard on himself, much like the guy that we're talking about in Reo Hatate. I think we've got players that have high standards and they want to keep to those standards. And when they don't necessarily get to them or reach those levels, then they're hard on themselves. Hatate was actually really good off the ball yesterday in terms of pressures. He was Celtic's top pressurer yesterday and second top in counter pressures. So it's not an attitude problem or him not doing enough work off the ball. I just think he's very, very hard on himself, and I'm kind of willing to die on this hill because he's such a flair player, and I feel like it gets directed at flair players more than any other. You got that down south as well. I remember in particular a guy that's in the news just now, and Paul Pogba got the attitude sort of shtick. These flair players, when they're good, they're great, and everybody wants to sort of praise them, and deservedly so. But maybe when they don't have the best game, then instantly their attitude comes into question. I just think it's a tad harsh, and Celtic are in a really good spot at the moment with midfielders. If they'd have dropped points yesterday, then I think the question might have been a bit different, and we'd be talking about it, maybe being a bit concerned with Arne Engels. But they responded. They got the 3 points. The players that came off the bench, and Bernardo and McCowan, especially in midfield, made a difference. And that midfield, they're all going to be competing against each other. It's up to Hatate to just get back to the levels that we know that he can. Because when he's on his game, he's one of the first names on the team sheet. He is a flair player that can open defences up and open midfields up at will with his passing and his shooting as well. So I'm not too concerned. He needs the international break. Hopefully he actually gets some game time for Japan as well, because that might be playing on his mind too. The last time he actually travelled with Japan, he went thousands of miles and he didn't get a single minute of game time for his. So there might be more going on in the background than what we're privy to. So I would give him the benefit of the doubt in this occasion. But he's one of the players that I would probably want Celtic to play against Aberdeen, because he's had some great games against Aberdeen in the past. I remember a couple of seasons ago in particular, I think it was Ange Postecoglou's second season. And he's still looking for Reo Hatate after that game. He nutmegged him about 2 or 3 times in the 90 minutes, and he was incredible. So he just needs to get back to that level. I'm sure he will. He's under the best manager in terms of man management, who has clearly got an arm around him and wants him to do well and is willing him to do well. So let's see how the international break does for him, and hopefully he comes back better and stronger.
Few commentary. Brian, interesting one. We got too many bedwetters. If we ain't 2 or 3 goals clear at half time, it's the end of the world. Young Luke deserves a start. Interesting point, Brian. It certainly was a new feeling yesterday for a lot of us this season, going behind, in a league game, going behind. But we won. Joe saying subs changed everything. I could see what Rodgers wanted to do with Ida starting, but I guess in hindsight it feels like it should have been Kyogo starting. Charlie bringing up Ida as well, not as effective when he starts. Listen, Ida didn't have a game. I've kind of spoken about Ida in the past. I'm probably not the best guy because I love the guy. I think he's a great player. I know he wasn't great yesterday, and he hasn't been great in games he started. But I just don't get this desire some people have. And I'm not talking about anyone who commented there, but you see some comments in forums and stuff that are so over the top in criticism for Adam Ida.
It's one way or the other with Adam Ida. I think there's either over lavish praise of the player, which in some ways is merited.
Say that he's been probably like I would give him, since he signed, a 6 or a 7 out of 10. I think he's been.
I think he's Celtic's I think he's Celtic's most expensive development player of all time, because I still think there's quite a few levels for him to get to. There's a lot of fundamentals in his game that he needs to improve on as a striker, but he's at the right place with the right manager to do so. You could also put that towards Odsonne Edouard, who did it in a similar fashion against Rangers in some of the big games, but he was a development player. Sometimes you need to spend that bit more. Do I think that they overpaid for Adamida? Ever so slightly, but it got to that point where you need to bring him in. It was at the point that Norwich wanted him. Maybe Norwich wanted to work with him, but he wanted to go to Celtic. His heart was set in Celtic. Maybe he's better off the bench at this moment in time, but it was just he didn't get any service yesterday. He was feeding off of absolute scraps, and
he had one really good one in the first half that he played in for Maida, and Maida handballed it. Remember, that was a great wee flick from Maida.
Mm-hmm. He's got it in his game, and he just needs to keep on developing. I'm sure he can. There's so many pros in his game. He's got so much to work with. He's fast. He's got that low centre of gravity. He's tall as well. He's got a good strike on him. He scores in big moments. He just needs to put it all together. And then once he does, he'll be one hell of a striker for Celtic, if he isn't already, because he's already scored big goals. But, you know, Celtic have got an embarrassment of riches. They've got Kyogo sitting on the bench, who did make a difference when he came off. That's just the strength and depth. He can develop quietly in the background, maybe start some games, but he will come up trumps when it matters. It didn't matter as much yesterday because Kuhn was the talisman. He's been the talisman all season, to be honest, for Celtic. But Adamida will come up trumps when it's required. You know, you look at that game at Hampden against Aberdeen in a few weeks' time. That's the sort of game that he's going to come alive in, you would imagine, and I've got no doubt that he can. But he's a development player. Yes, they paid $8 million for him, and you'd maybe expect more of the finished article for that amount. But I think the potential is there if Celtic just nurture it.
Yeah, we move into international break now, guys. Couple of weeks of nothingness. We'll still get together and talk every day and do all of that stuff. But Aberdeen after that, Celtic Park. Two not just unbeaten teams, but two teams with 100% league records. 7 wins from 7. I think the last time we got 7 wins from our first 7 was 2010. I'm sure I heard yesterday, Joe. So the fact Aberdeen have done it as well is a hell of an achievement. And what a game that is going to be at Celtic Park. Sold out, Saturday 3 p.m. I know someone was moaning about the game not being on TV, and it was JJI saying, and you know, I agree with that. It probably should be on TV, but also very happy it's not, because you know, Saturday 3 p.m. 200% record, something's got to give. What a game that's going to be to come back to.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Like, I know that there are grievances about the lack of live television for that game. It's understandable. Very selfishly, I will be going, and I am quite glad that it's not on the TV, because it's going to be a sellout anyway. But it gives it that extra edge, knowing that, you know, no one can use any excuse to not be there. So yeah, it's been some time that I know obviously Hearts had a good run at it. Very different season for them this year. Had a good run at it to finish third last year, but it's been some time that I can remember that it's been so close with a team that isn't Rangers at this stage in the season. You know,
2006 probably would be Burley for Hearts.
I mean, that's an interesting point, because I brought that game up earlier, and I remember that game, and people were talking about Hearts as potential title winners because they had like Presley and Hartley and Scatchell and all of these, you know, Fisas, who'd just won Euro 2004, who they signed as a left back. Doesn't seem like anyone's saying Aberdeen can win this league. I personally don't think there's much chance of that, because I think we're far stronger. So, but they're doing incredibly well, Joe. I mean, I think 7 wins for 7 in the league. I don't know how many they've won on all competitions, but it's very impressive.
I think, I mean, the big point for these teams, I mean, 2006, that was the game that Craig Gordon kind of bundled the ball into the net at Celtic Park as well, wasn't it?
No, that was later in the season. If you're talking about the one where we were 1-0 down, came back to win 2-1, that was later on that season. This game was 1-1. Craig Beattie scored for us that day against
That's right. Yeah, I remember now. But it's, I mean, the big question for these teams is, where will they be in December, in January, February, March, and so on, and whether or not Aberdeen have the wherewithal and the bandwidth in their team to last is a different conversation altogether. In the here and now, they've had a fantastic start to the season under Thielen, to come back, to get themselves level almost immediately yesterday, to get themselves in front in dramatic fashion, you see all the social media footage of the fans, expletives, and they're going to win the league. Okay, it's good. Have fun while you can, as we say, Celtic fans. But no, it sets it up. It sets it up so well. And yeah, to have this international break, you do take that kind of, well, here we go, and hope everyone comes back fit. But to have such a focused game. And then obviously, not too far after that is the League Cup semi-final, which you mentioned, Ryan, and the small matter of heading to Atalanta, who won 5-1 at the weekend. Someone scored a hat trick, and apparently the other 2 goals were very, very good goals. So yeah, it's all to play for after the other side. You wouldn't have it any other way, would you?
It's a pro for Aberdeen as well that they don't have European football to contend with, and I think it hamstrung their season completely last season under Barry Robson, because they just did not have the squad to deal with European football. You're seeing similar with Hearts, probably Kilmarnock, St Mirren to an extent. Even those early starts to the season, it's a struggle for them to actually maintain that good league form. But Aberdeen, they actually had the League Cup. Because they were so far down in the league last season, they had the League Cup to sort of build up ahead of steam, and they've been just winning. Not just winning games comfortably, but a lot of their wins have been winning ugly last minute goals. 3-2s, 2-1s. They're grinding out results. They've also got Duke back, who went AWOL for months, who's now playing for them, who is now an extra weapon. It'll feel like a new signing for Aberdeen. So you're expecting Aberdeen to bring a sizable crowd to Celtic Park. I think that'll be one of the games of the day. I think it'll be the game of the day in terms of British football, because 21 points each. I think both teams are on 21 points at the moment. Celtic have a far superior goal difference, but it's going to be it's a massive game out with Celtic Rangers game. I can't think of a bigger fixture in recent Scottish football history than this one coming up. Really, really exciting. I feel like the build-up's starting already, and it's not for another week and nearly 2 weeks basically. So it's an exciting one, and exciting for the league. And I think the league's always stronger with a good Aberdeen in it. So no complaints at all. Looking forward to getting to that one next Saturday.
Yeah, it's going to be a total sellout as well, which is good. Aberdeen are going to fill whatever allocation they get, probably 1,000 or so, but they could probably shift like 4 times that for this game pretty comfortably, given the what they're like when they're playing well. They get a big support. So it's going to be a crack, and as you say, that League Cup game as well. There's going to be a hell of an atmosphere for that one Saturday evening. So we've got those 2 games: Atalanta, Leipzig. I think we've got trips to Motherwell, which is I love going to Motherwell. It's always a good game. They're playing really well. Kelly away. Okay, the pitch isn't great, but it's always a challenge there. I think we've got the 2 Dundee teams to come to Celtic Park as well within a few days of each other. So there's some cracking fixtures in the next wee run, and I can't wait for it. We just need to get through the international break, guys. Any other final comments today?
Can I just bring this super chat up, and I don't want to miss it, but thank you very much to Charles Coker, who became a YouTube member and did a super chat, so thank you very much. Absolutely unbelievable from Charles. We really do appreciate it. He's talking about the fact that Scales is getting needless flack. Has there ever been a player that's got more needless flack? He's been solid for us all year. He makes one mistake and people call for his head. It's insane. But apart from that handball, which is unlucky, it's the same one that Celtic got against Hearts. It's literally identical. It's just a hand out, an outstretched arm, and I don't think Scales wasn't complaining. You could see it in the body language. He knew it was a penalty. But apart from that, I thought he was solid, and I thought Austin Trusty was solid yesterday as well. I thought the 2 of them were absolutely fine. They didn't really allow anything else apart from the penalty and that long-range chip from Ronan Hale and the shot that Kasper Schmeichel parried early on in the game. But apart from that, they kept it quiet, and I thought they were both pretty solid. But thank you very much, Charles Coker, for your super chat and for becoming a member. Really appreciate it.
Okay, great stuff. That'll do us for today, guys. Thanks very much for chatting about Celtic. We'll move forward, as we say. We've got the international break now. There'll be plenty of stuff happening. I'm sure you guys will be writing away various things, and we'll reconvene this time tomorrow. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll chat to you on Tuesday.